am I spelling wrong?
I don't know, EDEL.
Give that.
Yeah, so I got in there, isn't it?
Give it transpose.
EDELE.
L instead of EL.
Oh,
No worries.
yeah, that's me.
Matt's like, I've not.
That was a quick point too.
Sean, look at
Oh, now you spelled, whoa, wait.
That's how I spell
I'm
it.
not
I pulled out my
writing.
deflection
Oh,
seal.
you spelled it right in the meeting minutes though.
Yeah, well, it took us a long time to get Maura's name right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one of my assistants still spells my name wrong.
Serious?
And she has good attention to detail, she still spells my name wrong, like.
And then
That is right.
I do have to think about Fitzpatrick. Think about that every time I type it out, because it's long.
But it's a compound word, right?
That's what I call you, FITC Patrick. Go ahead, on to speak, yeah.
So actually, you do have a typo though, you spelled Matt's name wrong. And the meetings attending with Ellen, Jamie, Patrick, and Angel spelled wrong, right?
Everybody
Just
spells
do it.
my name wrong.
You have it spelled right everywhere else,
Where?
just not the first one. Yeah. somebody-
It doesn't matter.
All right, I'll
Jamie,
I'll
this
pay
is like pick
attention.
on Jamie's mistakes, huh?
Is it really hot in here, or is it just me?
Yeah, yeah.
All right,
We're ready to go.
59, ready to go? All set? All right, let's call the meeting to order. Let's do a quick pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
All right, can I get a motion on the approval of the minutes, notwithstanding my misspelling of a couple of people's names in the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Matt, business administrator comments?
Okay, so, I just have, trying to keep it brief right now because there's a lot going on because of the beginning of the fiscal year. The first one is propane. We're gonna be going to a new propane vendor. Our current propane vendor ran out of propane like 5 days before the beginning of school and took them 5 days to turn it back on again. So,
We ran out here, or they just ran out
at
themselves?
Memorial School, the tank ran out.
Okay,
And there was a problem with one of the valves on the tank, and they promised to have a serviceman there the next day to get that valve repaired. Instead, it took me to make a lot of phone calls 5 days later, and they got a service personnel. It was questionable whether I could open. I was going to tell Tom to open up school timely for Memorial. So this is the second time this vendor has ran the school out of propane. We need it for the kitchen and we need it for hot water. So I'm done with that.
Another contract in place?
Right now, there is no contract in place with them. I can make them. The question is whether we own the tank. So, okay. The next item is this month, I'm gonna be going out to, get electricity rates. And when that happens, I'm gonna reach out to the finance chair and we're gonna go over the rates at that time. And this is gonna be locking the district in for a 3-year period for electricity rates. I also want to point out that inflation, many of the products and services are coming in greater than the national inflation rate, which is also greater than what the budget was built upon. We're going to be doing a deep dive into the budget and make hard choices this year. Okay. The next thing is I provided a list of encumbrances for the current fiscal year. It's in that link. I do want to make a point that we've been working since mid-July to try to get our encumbrances complete. And what you're going to see in our report is we're not as complete as it should. It's literally taken 3 weeks to get payroll up and running for the first payroll, just because of so much effort to do, it takes 2 people to do, or 3 people to do every single teacher, paraprofessional, secretary, to get ready for that first payroll. Let's see. So, we haven't had the time to roll over the beginning balances in the general ledger. However, as of today, we have $4.4 million in the bank. That represents 1.43 months of operating cash, assuming we spend, our burn rate is just over $3 million. The town of Kingston and Newton are current with their monthly assessment payments, and we issued our first invoice to Fremont for their tuition just a couple of days ago. So as of July 31st, we reported a total revenue of $27,525,000. Now, this doesn't include the use of fund balance that's going to reduce the tax rate at $1.1 million. There weren't that many transactions that occurred in July, and really what you're going to see is September is going to be the first month. That's when we're going to get a lot of our state aid, and we've been starting to see the state aid rolling in today.
Just for clarification, 27 million that we booked as revenue is not cash in hand, is looking receivable.
That's correct. Okay. Non-health insurance expenditures right now. No, that's right. We spent $3,014,000. I don't have my reading glasses, so
No,
this is all blurry to me. Yeah. So through the end of July, we've spent just over $3 million in encumbrances of $21,275,000. Majority of those encumbrances are payroll items. Okay.
Again, future liability is not cash out.
Right.
Same as on the revenue side.
Exactly. Yep. Remaining appropriation is $7.4 million. This doesn't include encumbrances that will need to be reported. And we've been, again, working on this since mid-July. Okay. An example would be the bond payment for this building, which is due in January. That got recorded after the date of this report. Okay. Health insurance expenditures through July 31st were $87,132. Encumbrances were $5,546,000. So far, it has a deficit of $189,899. Revolving and capital reserve funds through June 30th, we don't have the rollover for the general ledger, and then also the trust funds get reported on a quarterly basis. So they're not going to get updated until August, September. So again, the total reserves as of June 30th were $1.4 million. That included the 2.5% contingency fund, which is actually a board agenda item tonight.
Just a point to make here, health insurance expenditures. This is very unusual that we're running at the beginning of the year. We lay out what we think we know where our health insurance is going to be based on decisions that people have already made and based upon the rates that we're paying per head to be in a deficit position.
Yeah.
If you look historically, when you look at funds transfers that we have, often it's from the healthcare accounts into other accounts, and the healthcare account already looks to be a negative deficit balance for the year. And that's concerning and unusual.
Yes, exactly. But it's an indicator of a lot of what I've been seeing over the last few months. So again, I want to make a point to all of you. We're going to be doing a deep dive into the budget. Okay. Essentially, the taxpayers gave us a fixed pie, and we're going to have to evaluate what it is we need to get through the year. And we're going to map it all out in great detail.
When you say it's nothing, what you've seen over the last few months regarding health.
It's not necessarily the health insurance, but what I've been seeing is, for example, I've been seeing a lot of the purchases as compared to the last year. Vendors have been increasing their prices between 24 and 74%. Okay.
Non-contracted items.
Yeah, and so basically we've been saying to them, it's like, you need to renegotiate that, we're not deep pockets, okay? And so at that point, it becomes, all right, within that line item, what do we need? What do we not, what would be nice? What do we need to get through the year? Okay, so, another example would be the heating oil. So the budget originally was built on heating oil around 3%. When we discussed the budget last year, we discussed about reducing the operating budget on those line items and then setting up a reserve for that just in case, okay? So it essentially equates to the same dollar amount than what we're projecting. Last year we bought heating oil at just over $2.19 a gallon. Trying to propose a $3 increase in heating oil at that time was ridiculous, okay? We just locked in at heating oil at $3.77 per gallon, okay? So
And that's what they're gonna go north.
So we're seeing constraints all around. Honestly, I find this entertaining, so this stuff I enjoy.
I didn't find it. My auto delivery came 2 weeks ago, it's 9 degrees outside. 4 hours or something else. Thank you.
Okay, I don't want to make it sound like it's doom and gloom, it is not, okay? We've done a lot of our strategic purchasing already. The only one that's left over is electricity. We've got a lot of teachers that we need on hand. We're not struggling like other districts are struggling. I'm gonna have problems next week because we're gonna lose one bus driver. But otherwise, we're not having busing problems like other districts. So it's not doom and gloom. It's just now we have to plan appropriately and manage what we have. Okay?
So if you guys are okay, I'd like to take the old business open items, which is question and answers on the manifests in the summer and drop that to the bottom, and then get into the other items, which I fear if we spend that much time on the open items, we might not get to these others, and we will need to get to the others before we get into the questions and answers.
Do you have some issues on the open items?
No.
Oh, okay. I think it will go quick, but.
Well,
Yeah, let's
we'll be able to get it done. I just want to make sure I have time for something.
Yeah. Let's do the special education one, because I think that one's important. Okay, so, I have 5 budget requests from special education. Model that was thought of for, when special education budget is built, it's based upon students that are known at the time. And that is over a year ago, okay? What's happening now is, the students are landing up in different buckets. So we're trying to move everything around and manage what we've got for special education. I really can't dig deeper into it other than we're just moving these items. So I have 5 budget transfers within special education. The first one is for $106,964, and this is to reallocate funds to the cost of service for visually impaired and hearing impaired student.
Just for clarification, particularly for when we say, when we're doing line item transfers from special education, it's not in and out of special education funds, it's within special education.
That's correct.
Correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just for also clarification, if we're going to be moving in and out of special education, I need the full school board. Okay, the second item is, the total is $129,364. This is going to be for the cost of contracted speech services at Memorial. The next one is for $170,706. This is to reallocate funds to cover the cost of out-of-district residential placement. The next one is $12,242. This is to reallocate funds for the cost of non-public tuition for out-of-district placement. And then I believe the final one is $45,000 is to reallocate funds to cover the cost of in-state tuition for foster students.
Actually, read that, it's not just students. I guess I did better, I say.
So, you want to go on the
Yeah.
cost student?
No.
Okay.
To me, this is management of the line items of the special education, no matter line up, what's really happening. If anybody, can I have a motion to accept these and we can discuss it further?
Motion to accept.
Second. Any further discussions? All in favor? Unanimous?
The rest of them are kind of entertaining, so, it's something that's.
Yeah, so let's just go into the DOE. So we have not, as a finance committee, Matt, you couldn't hold it down for a while. Matt, you remember last time we met, Matt gave us projections of where the year end was gonna be and we thought the final results were. This is the official ending report that goes to the state, and this gives you the information as to where we ended up, and you go right to the bottom of this, and Matt can step us through what exactly the DOE is and where the key sets of data are that you might.
Yeah. So, for the school board at the last meeting, I gave you guys the PDF version of it, and that PDF version is only this tab. There are multiple tabs on the spreadsheet which deal with other areas that the DOE is interested in. To the far right-hand tab is the MS-25, which goes to the DRA, okay? So, I wanted to give you this Excel spreadsheet so you get an idea of what I'm putting the data into, because I know the next question is going to be dealing with average daily membership and probably per pupil cost, okay? So, and I have it up on the screen right here. The way that it's organized is the first group is the balance sheet, the next group is going to be the income statement, and then there's a whole bunch of expenditure pages, and it's kind of out of order. There's general fund, there's special revenue fund, and then it goes on to school food service and the trust funds. But the most important item is cell F50, which I have up on the screen. This is the unassigned fund balance. This is the surplus revenues and turn back of appropriations that the district didn't spend. We're required to go and give that to the taxpayers as a break in their tax rate, okay? And I know I'm using my geeky accounting terms, but in a business world, that would be your retained earnings. And we have to get back 100% of your retained earnings, okay? Now, the reserves, all reserves that are on the screen here, they all come out of unassigned fund balance, okay? So I have just over $1 million of encumbrances that got carried over into the next fiscal year. For example, in there is going to be the running track.
Open POs, basically.
Open
POs
POs.
where we make commitments for delivery to
Yes.
vendors, and it's not been delivered, it's not paid.
Correct, okay. The next one up, the 537,000, this is the 2.5% contingency fund that the school board votes on. So it's a reserve, it's like a reserve you retained earnings. And then 175,000 is what was voted at district meeting that gets sent to the trustees and trust funds. And then the small number above, 36,000, those are our prepaid expenditures. Okay. So if we go to the bottom of this worksheet, this is where it calculates the cost per pupil. And what it does is it tries to pull in data from up above that the state feels important in calculating the cost per pupil. It won't include certain items, okay? And then it compares it to the average daily membership of elementary, middle, and high school to come up with a cost per pupil per location, okay? And I know the next item on the agenda is a discussion about ADM.
Yeah, so here's my concern to me. So the final number there is 1,393. That's 13, average daily membership, 1,390. We have roughly 1,525 students. That's only 91% of the students. So that, in my opinion, is artificially inflating the cost per student. I don't know if this is right or not. My concern is, and I sent Matt this information on the RSAs. The RSA says it's what your expected attendance is. My contention would be, my expected attendance is my enrollment.
Right.
And variations to that number indicate changes in enrollment, students leaving or coming to the district. An alternate understanding is, no, that's attendance, that's butts and seats. If you expect, you have 1,000 kids, and you expect 10% absenteeism, then your average daily membership is only 900. I don't think that makes sense. So if that's what you're saying we need to do, I want to be challenging the state, because you can't plan.
Yeah, budget.
Right, I have to budget, we have to budget for the number of students enrolled. We don't have the luxury of saying, well, 10% aren't gonna show up at any one time, so we're just gonna assume they're not gonna show up, but we're gonna schedule 10% less than what we need. So I just want to get clarification back. Matt and I have been talking about this, and exchanging emails and exchanging sections of the RSA. I also reached out to the New Hampshire School Board Association to see what their take on is on it. But my concern is it really based upon butts in a chair? And to me, that just doesn't make sense. So I want to pursue that further, and make sure that we are properly understanding our numbers.
What are the other districts doing?
Oh, no, this is a state formula. You have
So-
to do it this particular way.
So the other districts, so we're,
Distinguish it from membership, because he was using membership as opposed to average daily membership. Okay,
but when we look at, I guess what I'm saying is when we look at that adjusted per cost people, when we compare us to other school systems, they're at the same disadvantage we're at. Is what, I guess is what I'm saying.
Supposed to be. It's supposed to be a comparative number.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's still, I would
Okay.
agree that it's overinflated, but aren't all the other ones overinflated too? So if we're using it for comparison tool, Exeter's has overinflated theirs 10% too.
But indeed, I would just say, is that really what the purpose is? Is the purpose to compare? What's the purpose of doing that? You compare it to anybody, but I think we want to know really what the cost is.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that there's a number of things. Matt brought this up in the budget committee, so I want to chase this one down too. He said that we are mandated by the state to count some teachers and not students associated with teachers, or the other way around.
Yes,
I'm not
sure,
which it was.
yeah.
So you must account for all these teachers, for example, in kindergarten, but you can't count the kindergarten kids. And again, to me, that this makes no logical sense. So if that's the direction that we're getting, I want to go to state legislators and say, you explain to me how this makes sense. And you can't have one without the other. It doesn't work. You're skewing all your data.
And it throws the student people.
Correct.
On them.
So Matt brought that up in the budget. That got me thinking further about this. He and I have talked about this further. So I just wanted to bring it up as something that is worth, this is worth my time pursuing, and I wanted you guys to know that I'm pursuing it, so I can keep you up to date.
yeah, I do want to point out that attendance rates are different from each school district. Okay, like Hanover is going to have a high attendance rate. Manchester might have a low attendance rate. Okay, so you get to be careful with your comparisons.
Right, yeah. Where, do you know where we do stand? Are we kind of right in the middle?
Well, I think he just calculated the number at 91%.
But where is that relative to other schools?
Yeah, I can't answer that.
It'll take some work to dig it in, because I mean, when you find things that don't make sense within a governmental system, and getting acknowledgement, one, that that's being done properly, and then two, that it doesn't make sense. is gonna be less than straightforward.
Well, I suppose not for nothing, the last 2 years too, I can see how it's going to make it all the more inflated because there have been so many absences because of quarantining and that type of thing, so. Just by the nature of these kids not being allowed to come to school, I would imagine that's gonna inflate it even more.
I just wanted to understand it well enough to be able to challenge the state legislature. And say, you gotta explain to me how this is what you're truly directing all of us to do.
Yep. Perfect.
Before you close that tie.
Yeah.
I just kind of have an interesting question maybe to ask you. Under the salary and benefits tab, we've got the salaries and the benefits. Is it fair to say that 50% of salary benefits equate to 50% of salaries essentially? Yeah, okay.
I would say it's larger than that.
Well,
It's covered as benefit.
Well, so our salaries for the 1100 code were 8 million and benefits were 4 million. Pretty
That's
much.
driven by insurance, right?
Yes.
Does that include days off, or does that just show up as regular pay?
It shows up as regular pay.
So days off isn't counted. So it's significantly higher.
It's health insurance, FICA, Medicare, workers' compensation, unemployment, and then there's some insurances in there. And I just can't rattle them off the top of my head.
Right,
Those are minor, those are minor.
yeah, okay.
Oh, New Hampshire retirement, that's a big one.
Yeah, because I know, my business, my program is not that high, but we also don't have, for retirement as well. It just seems like a very high amount.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
When you look at comparative numbers, you see that districts do very different things with insurance. So we looked in the past at insurance levels, what other districts are doing, particularly districts that pay more money up front in terms of salary.
Yeah.
And they have contracts that say, we, the district, will pay single medical. We'll provide to you single plus one or family. You pay everything over and above single, 100%.
Well,
So they would have a very different ratio. of
exactly,
salary
and I
to-
guess that's kind of what I'm getting at for another day when we discuss contracts or what, would be interesting to say,
Right.
okay, here, our benefits are 50% of the salary. Let's go compare us to other districts, because sometimes people get so focused on what the salary is, and we're maybe not looking at the big picture
I've done some
of
of
that.
that work. In my opinion, we would gladly take some other districts' entire package over our own, particularly some districts that we get pointed out to, hey, this district pays better than us, we should match them. I would gladly take their whole package
Right,
and shift it, but they're not equal packages.
Right.
So you can't just look at one piece without the others.
right, yeah, and this is very clear. I mean, this is just, boom, here's your total, like, it's
Yeah,
crystal
yeah.
clear right here,
Yes.
what that amount
That's
is.
a very good point.
Got something else?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So again, these are the June 30 balances, and the current balances aren't going to differ, except for the facility use revolving fund. So the first one is special education expendable trust fund. The balance in June was 241,237, and if you recall, the school board approved withdrawal, I believe it was 197,000 out of that fund, or up to. And again, if we were to withdraw any of the funds out of there, it would be a long time from now.
Sorry, Lee. No fussing.
We've been talking about it, not to worry.
All right.
The next one is the capital improvement maintenance fund. This has a balance of $273,101.
Let's clarify this one.
Yeah,
The 50,000 that's being shown as transfer, that is not the one from this past March, that's from the prior.
Yes.
Because it's a June 30th, and the payment from unexpended funds has to happen after that. for
That's
the
correct.
fiscal year.
yes,
So I just want to make that clarification. That's the 50,000 is from the 2021
yes.
election, not from the 2022.
Right. And if you the warrant, it says available at June 30th. So you can't transfer it at June 30th, you have to transfer it on July 1st.
I just wanted to clarify that in case people are looking at it.
The next one is the unanticipated educational expenditures. It's $200,244.91. And then we asked the school board to withdraw about $97,000 out of this for a first grade teacher. The final one is the facility use revolving fund. This is where the rental of the old middle school goes into. At June 30th, it had a balance of $165,896. About $11,000 goes into that fund every single month. And then at June 30th, the contingency amount was $537,817. It's a reduction of the prior amount by $7,195. Okay.
And then we'll get an update to that. The next one will be September 30th, right?
Yes. Okay. So do you want to do trust fund?
Yeah, so just to set the stage on that, I was contacted by the head of the trustees to get a sense of where we are as a school board in terms of investment options, because the trustees are being advised by their investment advisor, who also does numerous schools, that there's not a lot of money being made from the funds because they're invested extremely conservatively, and then he recommends putting some of those in stocks. And so Brad reached out to me, and we're trying to schedule a time where the finance committee and trustees can get together. I did point out to him that the current sense of the board has been, and still operative, is that the funds need to stay in a liquid format in case we need them. I also pointed out to him that the board had recently authorized to match 80% of the special education trust fund to be spent, and 48% of the unanticipated educational expense trust fund to be spent. So if that comes to fruition, we need access to this money. The point that the trustees make is that's true, basically all the districts in the inflationary time frame, you're losing if you're not gaining. And they just wanted to talk and make sure that we're all in sync. So I said, that'd be a wonderful thing. Transparency is great. Let's get the two groups together. We're just trying to work out a discussion, a time to have discussion.
Yeah, so in my past experience, I've seen a town invest like this, and when it came time to withdraw the funds, there wasn't enough funds for the actual project, okay? And I came across an example, and I sent a right to know request to another district, and you can see that they have same financial advisors, and I'm gonna zoom in. Their taxpayers think it's this number right here, $172,950. That's what they think was put into the fund, but the fund has actually lost $1,236. There's really $171,000 in that fund. Okay, if you look at their overall investments for the whole town, their capital reserve funds, the town itself has lost $25,000 in value. Okay.
And parts of the risk of stocks.
Yeah.
So is this a board decision or? Okay.
So they have both. They control both. They're asking about for those trust funds associated with the school district. They want to validate the sense of the board, and they want to make sure that we understand what they're getting for professional guidance, and that do we or do we not have a sense that we should go there? Structurally, statutorily, correct me if I'm wrong, the trustees make the decisions, but they of course want to understand what the sense of the board is, so that they try to work in alignment with the sense of the board. And they're very transparent. They gave me a list of, this is what we're invested in now. It's very conservative instrument. It's not the stock market, but they're being advised that it's time to get into the stock. You know, one of the things you look at, well, it would seem, you know, the market's come down some, maybe this is a good time. Of course, the old adage in the stock market is only a fool tries to time the market, so I mean,
Yeah, my own personal investment person told me, if you want it to be liquid, now it's not designed for that. If you need it to be liquid, if you need to put it in there not to have it, I think if we were having this conversation 5 years ago, I'd be like, yeah, let's invest it. But especially where you just said inflation, we're experiencing 25 to, did you say 75, 95% on
No, just on purchases.
well, that's what I mean, like just
Inflation.
on purchases, so who knows? I think that I don't think it's highly probable, but there's a chance we might need to go into that, and I think we need to keep that money liquid right now. If it was 5 years ago, I would have a different opinion if we were more solid ground, but right now,
I think that they just want to make sure that we understand. Yes, there's risks to investing. I think we all understand that. Very averse to those risks. They want to make sure that we also understand there's risks to not investing in an inflationary time.
I would
There's
be,
truth to that too. But I tend to agree with you.
I would be curious to hear specifically why their investor told them to invest now. I feel like now is the time we need that money to be liquid, not.
Well, I think they would. plan to
That's
bring
why
it-
I would love to hear their opinion on it, because to me, it's just like, we need that money. There's a good chance we could, I shouldn't say it, because Matt's gonna take care of it, he's doing a deep dive, and we're gonna be just fine.
So they would include their advisor.
Right, okay, yeah, I would love to hear what the advisor, why he's this or she is specifically saying that.
The next item was, you wanted to know about the ESSER fund usage for special education requests.
Right, so one of the things that came up at the board meeting on the 22nd was basically authorization to spend that 80% of the special education trust fund for additional special education. My contention would be, we have ESSER funds, and I think that would qualify for the ESSER funds. Part of what we're trying to deal with is the impacts of the pandemic on our littlest students, and the ones just coming into the system, and the ones that are still in daycare that have just gone through the pandemic. The ESSER funds for the pandemic, so just asking where we stand, is there a possibility of using the ESSER funds for that as opposed to the trust funds?
There is a possibility. You have to focus on whether it is going to do learning loss. Okay. So, that is going to be a part of the deeper dive in making sure that we can, put money where we can get.
I know that from just reading the leader, Manchester is using significant funds of ESSER money for payments directly to teachers. So if that is an accurate statement, what the press is reporting, it seems to me that it's a very loose definition of what's tied to the pandemic for ESSER funds.
Yeah.
We have already spent some of the funds, and as Matt already said, over the next 2 weeks, we've got everyone quoted in the system, we did the first payroll. So now we're going to look at all the positions and start first with what I call the breakage, which is new hires versus anticipated, and figure out what we have there, and work on the grant money first before we go to the contingencies, which is why I said at the board meeting this spring, or at the end of the year, when I asked to have the ability to use those funds, that we may not need to use them. And we are kind of wondering at this point, but we're thinking about, there's also special education grants. So we want to look at those too and just try to make the best decisions to use the grant funds that are either going to expire or that can be allocated to those for using the contingency.
Could you clarify for us and for people at home, you say the word breakage, which you mean by that?
Yeah, breakage is when you have a very veteran senior teacher retire or leave the district, and then you hire a new teacher. There's funds in the budget for the difference between the two. The reverse can occur, so you can have negative breakage, which is when you have a newer teacher leave and you hire someone that's more senior and is actually additional cost. We get breakage in staff salaries and health insurance. So some people leave with a full family plan and we hire someone that's single. Or we hire someone with, or we have someone leave that was a single and we hire someone that has a full family plan. So we just have to constantly, it can add up very quickly. It's a lot of money and it moves dramatically, which is why I'm always cautious about the amount we have budgeted for health insurance, because health insurance can swing wide. And it can change in the middle of the year, because if somebody is on a two-person and they have a child, now they're full family. So it changes even within the school year, so it's important for the public to understand that it's not just fixed in the budget for it, it's dynamic.
You, just a few minutes ago, Tom, we were just discussing one of the sheets that, Matt had, that 50% of salaries goes, like, 50% of what the salaries are benefits. You take that factor times 0.5, that's how much we're spending, so yeah.
It's a
A
huge,
lot of that is insurance.
80% of our budget is people. Roughly. I'm Jamie, I say roughly. You gotta do the numbers and remember everything, so. Yeah, thanks.
You saying I'm not good with numbers?
I'm saying you're great. They call me on it more frequently. Nice catch.
Okay. All right. I have a staff report here on inflation, and, basically, what I'm saying here is that a lot of the budget was built on like a 2.5% inflation factor, like say, for example, transportation. I did it at 2.5%. It came in slightly greater than 2.5%. We were able to negotiate the difference into the following fiscal year, okay? But what we're seeing is, like increases, when I say increases 24 to 74%, these are just like purchases. And in a lot of the cases, I feel like we're getting gouged by our vendors. And I kick back a lot of these invoices back to the responsible people, and we try to tell them, go and negotiate it, okay? Try to get a discount. Try to cut down the service to like make it fit within what your model was. We've asked quite a few of these services because we felt that their pricing model was not reasonable. Okay, for example, one of our online software resources, their pricing model was for 1,500 students, which is basically every student in the district. Okay. It was only being used by 77 students, okay? They wouldn't reduce it to like, say, 100 seats. So, goodbye.
I think that the inflation is real, it's here. We are gonna have to put our nose to the grindstone as a district. I mean, take a worst case scenario, you get 7%, I've seen the feds come out with some 8.5%, depending on what they call core inflation or non-core inflation, goes up in the double digits. So let's just take double digits to make an example. If we really did nothing to try to counter this, we got double digits this year and double digits next year. That's one, not sustainable for us, and it's certainly not sustainable for Fremont capacity. So, I mean, the inflation is here, it's real, and Matt had indicated this is the fun part for him, you're looking at what you can do, but we're really gonna have to be very tight and very inventive as to how do we try to offset these increases rather than just accept them?
So one of the things that I really want to start having an open discussion is right now I'm building a budget, okay? When I'm finding invoices coming in, I'm actually placing the dollar amount in a line item on the budget, okay? Without an inflation factor. So at some point when we are building the budget, I'm gonna nail down an inflation factor to apply to all the items, because I don't anticipate inflation to flatten out for next year, okay? So I just want all of you to be aware that this is coming, okay? I'd like to hear from each of you what you think it may be. Right now, the local inflation factor is 7%. As Jeannie said, the national one's 8.5%. I'm uncomfortable about putting an inflation factor of 7% on every line item in the budget.
Still sounds very conservative though.
7% now. The budget, 7% of this year's budget next year. So it's really even higher than that.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying, I think that's pretty conservative, like, it's certainly.
So it has a deeper discussion moving forward. Okay. You're thinking.
But I still have questions, so. And I think I have to see line by line, you're saying purchases, I'm thinking contract with purchases. What we have to know, change vendors,
Exactly.
push price increases on.
We've been doing some of that already with the software.
I think we need to align that one.
And then there's also the whole thing, the difference between fuel and what are our options with fuel providers. What are our options with electric providers?
Some things you can't, there's some things you're not gonna be able to touch. There's other things. When I hear
Well,
somebody bought something, they sent me an invoice, and then I told them to go back and renegotiate. You know, the car should have been done before you bought it. I'm not gonna say too much, because I don't understand that whole process.
Yeah.
So I think I need some clarity on it, but for me, that's.
I wouldn't say that we were obligated to buy a lot of these things and accepted the price as it came in. What they did is they gave us an invoice and I took it back before I paid that invoice.
Which is the process. But it is why don't we get together with you, we'll show you how that works so you can understand schools, because it's a kind of unique situation, right? So for example, if the school has always had the software, they just go forward with purchasing it again because it's in the budget. Matt gets it and sees a 40% increase, he says, hold on, we need to talk about that, right? And we've been kicking back software and talking about it for 3 years. This isn't new. But electricity, on the other hand, he's been working on, and there's not a lot of options for electricity. So the question is that the biggest one that we can't change is the contract increases. So we cannot renegotiate the paras, the teachers, and the administrators.
I'm not talking.
And again, that's 80% of our budget.
I'm not talking about-
Kind of flip sense of sort of good thing,
Yeah, it's
right?
not.
Because
yeah.
that means 80% of our budget is not subject to
Right, he's
this.
talking about 6 or 7% of 20% of our budget,
Right.
not the
So-
entire budget. So I
From
think that's
that
important for
perspective, that
transparency.
makes, you know,
Yeah, like $2 million is our bond payment in order this for the next few years.
Right, that's not going up 7%.
That's not going to change it, the
It's
next
fixed.
of the budget.
So I think what Rick's saying is let's take a look at what 7% really means, because we don't want people in the community to, tell me if I'm wrong, Rick, but we don't want people in the community to think it's 7% of $37 million.
100%.
It is not that. It's 7,
I think for clarity, we just need to
parse it out.
do that
Yeah.
deeper dive.
right.
But-
My opinion is 20% of 20%.
Yeah.
I think I don't know where these inflation numbers coming from, 7 or 8%. I'm not personally seeing that. I mean, I get it, nobody don't trust you, right? I hear it on the news, or whatnot, but I'm like, that's not what I'm actually seeing in real world. I'm not seeing that. I don't know where these studies and whatnot are being done. I don't
Yeah.
see that.
What I'm seeing is we're being forced to make hard choices.
Mhm.
So instead of paying like 5 vendors, we're paying 4 vendors.
Mhm.
So to me, that's a direction of heading into a recession. Okay, so I just want to make sure that you all know that when it comes time to present the budget, I'm not surprising anyone that when I throw out like a heating oil number, it's not going to be a sticker shock.
You're gonna have fun budget for this year.
Oh, double fine.
That's really
I
exciting.
mean,
about
oh,
budget
this is
this year.
so exciting.
And part of what,
really back in.
you'll see in this process, the budget, part of what we're talking about, Rick, is that we do that deep dive during the budget process. So we'll get to line by line. I think Matt's just trying to give everyone a heads up that,
Yeah.
that we're dealing. Yeah. How's that with this?
Yeah, here's the 8.5% that Jamie was talking about. It's the percentage change from July of 2022 to 2021. And the Northeast is at 7.3.
Mr. Chair, are we getting, our next group starts in a few minutes. So
Yeah, we need, only the 6 or 5.
we'll get to-
Okay,
All right,
yeah, let's move on.
okay, I have the cap agreement. This is, I'm going to be presenting it tonight to the school board. This is Primex. I was asked by a couple of you to provide a listing of prior year actual expenditures and where it came in. I actually have another spreadsheet. So in the Google Drive, there's a spreadsheet for it. It's called cap agreement analysis. And so basically, the base year is 2020. The amount was 107,000. the cap agreement was 9%. It went up 6.9 the first year, 4% the second year, and 9% the third year. Okay, this year's cap agreement's at 7%. Okay, I have reached out to a commercial vendor and just to see what they would provide, and he basically tried to talk me out of trying to switch.
Interesting. Let's jump to the last one. On the withdrawal from the the energy needs, this is the Matt's proposal here. I'll just jump into the Matt.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because we're seeing this increase in energy costs, Matt's requesting to take basically all the money, $74,999 out of the fund that's funded at $75,000. I talked to Matt and Tom earlier. I don't support that. The reason I don't support that is, as Matt had mentioned earlier, on June 21st, we authorized spending 80% of the special education fund. We also authorized spending 48% of the unanticipated education fund. We also spent 37% of the revolving fund. We authorized $250,000 for the auditorium, $133,000 for track, $15,000 for basketball court, $90,000 for a meeting, which office, and we didn't spend that, it was authorized $90,000. We also put aside $537,000 in return of $1.2 million. There's a lot of unexpended funds still there. I'm very concerned about taking down these trust funds at the beginning of the budget cycle. I'd much prefer to put this off and see where we are. As Superintendent Ambrose just mentioned, they're gonna have a much better feel for where we are in laying it out, and Matt had mentioned that to me within a couple of weeks. To me, it's premature to make this move yet, given what we've already authorized. This would basically take virtually rounded to 100% of the funds we just set aside. So I think that until we demonstrate to ourselves, at least in my mind, that we need to tap into the trust funds and we can't make our way through with the unexpended funds, then it's premature to do it. It might be that we need to do this. I'm not saying we don't need to do it. Certainly energy is a problem. But we're 2 weeks into the school year. I just don't think the timing is appropriate to make that decision. We need, in my mind, we need great clarity to have the years.
And I just want to point out that I'm okay with the money.
Yeah, I think,
We
I
just
was
want to
gonna
be aware.
ask, is there a reason you were asking this now, or is this just more, yeah, I just want this to be in the back of your mind?
Okay, my job is to open doors.
Yeah,
That's it.
Okay, I would
So-
agree, if there's no.
I knew that was coming. Rick's job is to stick his toe in the door, and Laura's job is to
My job's to like.
hold the door open.
Arcade, where are the kids?
Yeah, hey, that's one of the arcade.
Right, okay, so there's no harm in waiting a couple of months, I guess that was my question, is there a,
If there's gonna be a harm,
I,
we're gonna know it in a couple of weeks.
yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know that we're going to need to use all of the funds, but we didn't use a lot of money for the office, because Matt and Dan did it in-house with local money, we saved over 60 grand. That goes somewhere, right? It could help us with other things, so that's part of this whole thing that we've been really working hard this summer, and we need to just kind of sift through everything. I just, for the transparency for the public, the hiring has been incredibly challenging. And we did have to combine a number of para positions and hire a teacher instead, particularly at Dayton, to get special ed programs covered. And Troy did a phenomenal job, but we just need to double check all those numbers now that and he's still not quite full, but he's close.
And then the last item was the open item. We deferred on that. We're out of time. I just ask everybody to go through those questions and answers. If you had any questions about the questions, just note that. We can talk about it with this on the agenda next week, or next meeting. Any other items from your perspective? Rick? No? Not? Tom? All right. It's a wrap, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was late, Amy. I was dealing with that drop off at preschool.
Yeah, it's getting a lot of attention. Do you think it's just people have decided to forego buses?
Yeah, I think we'll know a lot of the